Hey everyone, Mark here with the Government Vault, and this video here is actually some breaking news where the Supreme Court has just struck down affirmative action. This is really going to be some interesting times here, similar to I bet that we saw with when they struck down the abortion, or actually just returned abortion to the states. Um, but I can imagine that the left is not going to be happy about this. So let's find out what's going on.
In here, again, we are getting a word that the Supreme Court has made a ruling here. And again, this is brand new, but we're learning that the Supreme Court has ruled on affirmative action. Again, just to get you caught up, this is about colleges or universities using race during the admissions process. There was, again, this was brought forth by again, Asian Americans, white Americans that were, again, essentially saying that they were denied entry to certain universities or colleges because of their background. Colleges and universities arguing that the only way to make diversity within those campuses is to, again, separate by race. Supreme Court has officially ended affirmative action on college admissions.
So I guess the interesting thing about this is that affirmative action has been in place for decades, and I could actually understand the need for it early on. I mean, what we did to black people in America was absolutely reprehensible, horrible, horrible treatment, and so potentially there was a place for this, but it's been going on for decades, and the question I have is at what point do you start to return to a merit-based college admissions, which is where I think we're headed now? And how long do you need to keep it in place? How long does the black population of America need to get caught up based on what was done to them for hundreds of years? But it's been, I think 50 plus years now that affirmative action's been in place. So at some point it's got to end.
This is a major and monumental moment just coming down today. Moments ago, that opinion was handed down. Again, affirmative action, again, killed essentially now by the Supreme Court, the High Court. We're working to learn as we look through this now exactly how the judges ruled on this. We're learning that one of these reports are holding that Harvard and UNC's admissions program did violate the 14th Amendment. That is the Equal Protection Clause. But again, we are still working to confirm that. We have a reporter on this now working to gain more knowledge on this. But this just coming down, the rulings, also the opinion, and again, the numbers on this and where the judges stand on this.
I believe it was Chief Justice John Roberts who delivered the opinion of this one here. Again, citing the unconstitutionality of this program. Race-based affirmative action programs are unconstitutional. Believe it is a 6-3 ruling, which should fall in line with how the makeup of the Supreme Court is, but we do want to double check on that before we go on record with it. So again, this had been just one of two major cases that had to do with colleges and how essentially you would be admitted into them. For more on this, let's head back to Kilmeny Dukart. She's been following the very latest on this. Kilmeny.
It's really interesting, Sean and Emma, that this landed today. We had expected there would be another decision day tomorrow on Friday, and this is typically how the Supreme Court behaves. They save these major blockbuster cases until the last minute, until that last decision day. So again, breaking down this ruling, an unprecedented end to affirmative action by the Supreme Court, as you mentioned, a majority of justices ruling that it is unconstitutional. Let's recap for our viewers what those cases are. This is Students for Fair Admissions that brought this case against the University of North Carolina and Harvard University. So in other words, they're representing the public and the private sector of education. And essentially what Harvard did was they said that Harvard violated Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which prevents federal funding from being used to discriminate based on race. They have said in their case that Asian American applicants are less likely to be admitted than white, Hispanic, and Black applicants. Going back to this, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, she had vowed during her confirmation hearings here on Capitol Hill to recuse herself from that case because she sat as a board member at Harvard University. Now, Students for Fair Admissions, again, looking at the case of North Carolina, they were saying that it violated the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause by using race as a factor in its admissions progress. The group has said that the program isn't needed for campus diversity, but of course, opponents of all of this said that removing affirmative action would make campuses less diverse. So essentially what the justices have said here is colleges cannot use race for admission. It violates the Equal Protection Clause. And again, they're essentially saying, as they do in all of these cases, they're ruling that this is unconstitutional. But this was certainly unprecedented in some ways, Sean and Emma. This is what analysts predicted the justices may do when it came to this case. But to see it here in black and white ink is really, truly historic. And again, two of these cases, both brought by Students for Fair Admissions, victories on both.
Yeah, and just look.
I have to say, this is going to be some interesting times here. There's going to be a huge amount of pushback. But you have to wonder, the black community certainly has been disadvantaged, but maybe it's time for them to step up and stop depending on government to get them what they need. I think that I know so many black people that are more than capable of taking on anything they want to do in their life. And I think it's time at some point for the black community to recognize that and start taking advantage of the things that are available to them to advance themselves. And government involvement in that at some point was probably necessary, but is to now the right time to do this? That's not for me to say. But at some point, this had to end, and I do believe it probably was unconstitutional, and we allowed it to happen because it was a necessary thing. But at some point,
Looking through here and some of the reports, LA Times and others confirming it for the North Carolina case, it was 6-3, and the one that was recused by Ketanji Jackson Brown was 6-2 in the Harvard case. But what that points out is obviously the conservative-leaning justices have leaned towards ending, again, race being a qualifying factor to be admitted into colleges. This had to do with UNC and Harvard, as Kilmeny was so nicely pointing out to be able to understand this. Again, affirmative action officially here, again, ending there, finding it unconstitutional and violating the 14th Amendment. Kilmeny, really quickly before we go, we're getting some word that this may be the last opinion that we would get today or ruling from the Supreme Court. Have you heard anything on that?
Yeah, Sean, I believe that they have wrapped up their decisions for today. But of course, Friday will be an additional opinion day. And we continue to watch for a couple major cases. One, of course, involves Biden's student loan debt. You have, in that case, Biden versus Nebraska, where you have 6 Republican state legislatures that they say the Biden administration's use of the HEROES Act, which is a post 9/11 law allowing the Secretary of Education to respond to a national emergency by waiving or alleviating student loan debt. They're essentially saying here you can't do that. Then there's a separate case we're also watching where you have 2 individuals that have student loan debt that are arguing that they can't take advantage of the program. In other words, it's not fair. So we could likely expect that to drop tomorrow, as well as one other case having to do with whether this web designer based in Colorado has to cater to same-sex couples on her website, and whether she's violating a state law in Colorado that's saying that you're discriminating based on someone's gender or sexual orientation. So they're not done yet. There's still a few, but they are done for the day.
Right.
so when abortion hit, and there's certainly some complicity here from some of the law enforcement agencies, but there was rioting outside of Supreme Court justices' houses. and, putting some Supreme Court justices in danger. And so we have to double down on any kind of protection we offer these people, because just because you're not happy about it doesn't mean you can riot in the streets. And that's my biggest fear about this thing happening here. They're going to come after anybody who says they're conservative because of the abortion being returned to the states, and now offending affirmative action, which are huge proponents of the left's arguments. And their equity and inclusion statements. They include everybody unless you have a Trump bumper sticker, and then they hate your guts. But um, it has the potential to get very, very seriously violent if we're not careful here.
Okay, great point. Major ones tomorrow as well. But again, a major blockbuster, announcement coming in today, again, ending essentially affirmative action for college admission process. You cannot use race in the admissions process, according to the Supreme Court. That just came in. Kilmany Dukart reporting from the Capitol on that breaking news. Kilmany, thank you.
So, the ever-changing world of American politics. Here's where we're at. So, please like and subscribe, and please, please, please put some comments in. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this landmark decision by the Supreme Court today. You might also want to check out another video I have where John Durham was actually in the House of Representatives this week talking to a bunch of senators, and there's some interesting things that happened there as well. So, thanks for watching, and have a great day.